First contact. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with barely contained energy as Dr. Lyra Winters adjusted the final calibrations. The massive circular device dominated the underground laboratory at the Geneva Quantum Research Institute, its gleaming surfaces reflecting the blue-white glow of countless monitoring screens. Recording test sequence 47, Lyra spoke into her tablet, brushing a stray lock of silver-streaked black hair from her face. Attempting to stabilize quantum fluctuations at the theta-9 frequency. Her colleagues had called her obsessed, even delusional, for pursuing what they deemed impossible, using quantum resonance to communicate across dimensional boundaries. But after 15 years of research, she was finally close to proving them wrong. The chamber's hum deepened as power levels climbed. Lyra's fingers flew across the holographic controls, making micro-adjustments based on the cascade of data flowing across her screens. Something felt different this time. The quantum field readings were stronger, more coherent than ever before. Then she saw it, a shimmer in the air at the center of the chamber, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. But instead of distorting what lay behind it, this distortion seemed to reveal something else, something that existed in the same space but somehow separate. The shimmer coalesced into a tall, ethereal figure. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The being before her appeared vaguely humanoid but was composed of what looked like living light, with patterns of energy flowing through its form like liquid starlight. Remarkable, the figure spoke, its voice carrying harmonic overtones that made Lyra's skin tingle. You've actually managed to pierce the dimensional veil. Lyra gripped her console to steady herself. You can speak our language. We've been studying your transmissions for some time, the being replied. I am Zephyr, an observer from the celestial harmonies. We've been waiting for your species to achieve quantum resonance capability. Waiting? Lyra's scientific mind raced with implications. You knew we were close. We've watched your progress with great interest. Your approach to quantum mechanics is unique. Unorthodox by our standards, but effective. Lyra noticed that Zephyr's form shifted and flowed with their speech, creating complex patterns that seemed to carry additional layers of meaning. Without thinking, she reached toward one particularly beautiful configuration. Fascinating, she murmured. Your very being appears to be a form of quantum coherence. Zephyr's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. And you, Dr. Winters, are remarkably perceptive. Most species require significantly more time to comprehend our nature. The lab's security systems suddenly blared to life, red warning lights painting the chamber in crimson. Heavy boots thundered down the corridor, the Institute's security team, no doubt responding to the unusual energy readings. They cannot find me here, Zephyr said urgently. Our first contact must be handled delicately. But I will return tomorrow, through the resonance you've established. There is much we need to discuss. Before Lyra could respond, Zephyr's form dissolved into points of light that faded like dying stars. The security team burst in moments later, weapons drawn, only to find Lyra alone with her equipment. Dr. Winters, the lead officer questioned. We detected an anomaly. Just a successful test, Lyra replied smoothly, her heart still racing. The quantum field finally stabilized at the target frequency. After convincing the security team everything was normal, Lyra sat heavily in her chair, staring at the now quiet resonance chamber. She had pursued this research seeking scientific breakthroughs, hoping to revolutionize physics and communication. Instead, she had made first contact with an advanced civilization, one that had apparently been waiting for humanity to catch up. As she began documenting the encounter, she found her thoughts returning to the beautiful patterns that had flowed through Zephyr's form. There had been something almost musical about their interaction, like harmonies she could feel rather than hear. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. What she didn't know was that this encounter would not only change her understanding of the universe, it would challenge everything she thought she knew about consciousness, connection, and the very nature of beauty itself. Frequencies of the heart. Lyra spent the night reviewing her data, sleep forgotten in the wake of her extraordinary encounter. The quantum readings from Zephyr's appearance defied conventional physics. Their form had generated harmonics that shouldn't be possible in normal spacetime, yet the instruments had recorded them clear as day. Dawn found her still in the lab, surrounded by holographic projections of quantum waveforms. She barely noticed Dr. Roman Pierce, the Institute's director, until he cleared his throat directly behind her. "You pulled another all-nighter," Roman observed, his weathered face creased with concern. The security team's report mentioned unusual readings. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" Before Lyra could respond, the resonance chamber hummed to life. The familiar shimmer appeared, and Zephyr materialized, their luminous form casting rippling patterns across the lab's walls. Roman stumbled backward. "Good Lord." "Greetings, Director Pierce," Zephyr said, their harmonics somehow both soothing and otherworldly. "I apologize for any alarm. We believed Dr. Winters would be alone." "We?" Roman managed, looking between Lyra and the ethereal being. "The celestial harmonies," Lyra explained quickly. "They're an advanced civilization that exists in a quantum state we're only beginning to understand. They've been waiting for us to achieve quantum resonance capability." Zephyr's form shifted, creating complex interference patterns. "Your quantum resonance research has opened a door, Director. We believe humanity is ready for what lies beyond it." Over the next hour, Zephyr explained how their civilization had evolved beyond physical form, existing as coherent quantum patterns that could interact directly with the fundamental forces of reality. They offered to share knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of physics, energy, and consciousness itself. "This is extraordinary," Roman said finally. "But why now? Why us?" "Because of her," Zephyr replied, their form flowing like liquid starlight as they gestured toward Lyra. "Dr. Winters' approach to quantum mechanics demonstrates an intuitive understanding that most species take centuries to develop. She sees the music in the mathematics." Lyra felt her face warm at the praise. "I just follow the patterns where they lead." Precisely, Zephyr's harmonics carried what might have been enthusiasm. "You understand that quantum mechanics isn't just mathematics, it's a symphony of possibility. Watch." Their form began to pulse and flow in complex ways, generating quantum harmonics that made the air itself seem to sing. The patterns were beautiful beyond description, like visual music that spoke directly to something deep in Lyra's consciousness. "It's beautiful," she whispered, transfixed. Zephyr's form flickered momentarily, their harmonics shifting to an unfamiliar frequency. "You find beauty in quantum harmonics? Most species only see the mathematical relationships. How can anyone not see the beauty?" Lyra gestured to the flowing patterns. "It's like seeing the fundamental poetry of the universe." Roman watched this exchange with growing interest. "I'll need to inform the Institute's board," he said finally. "And eventually, we'll have to notify appropriate government authorities." "We understand," Zephyr replied. "But we request time first, to establish mutual understanding and trust. History shows that when different civilizations meet, fear often overwhelms wisdom." "Agreed," Roman nodded. "We'll keep this contained to key research staff for now. Dr. Winters can serve as our primary liaison." After Roman left to make arrangements, Lyra turned back to Zephyr. "You said you want to share knowledge. Where do we begin?" With this, Zephyr's form expanded, filling the chamber with intricate quantum patterns. "We'll teach you to see the harmonics that underlie reality itself. Your perspective intrigues us. You perceive beauty where others see only data." As they worked together, Lyra found herself increasingly fascinated not just by the advanced physics, but by Zephyr themselves. The way they thought about reality was fundamentally different from human perception, yet there was something compelling about their perspective, a grace in how they moved through quantum possibilities like a dancer through space. Hours passed like minutes as Zephyr taught her to read the quantum harmonics. Occasionally, their forms would resonate in unexpected ways when they worked closely together, creating stunning interference patterns that made Lyra's breath catch. "Your response to quantum harmonics is unusual," Zephyr observed during one such moment. "You don't just understand them intellectually, you feel them. Is that not normal for your people? We experience harmonics as fundamental truth. Beauty is not a concept we typically apply to physical laws." "Maybe you're missing something then," Lyra suggested, watching the play of light through Zephyr's form. "Maybe there's beauty in truth itself." Zephyr's harmonics shifted to a frequency she hadn't heard before. "Perhaps, we have much to learn from each other." What neither of them realized was that their growing connection was already changing them both in subtle ways. Zephyr's quantum patterns were beginning to show traces of human emotional harmonics, while Lyra's brainwaves were adapting to perceive quantum states in ways human consciousness never had before. The universe, it seemed, had its own plans for what their collaboration might become. Resonant discord. The quantum research lab had changed dramatically over the past month. New equipment lined the walls, combining human technology with crystalline structures that pulsed with otherworldly energy. Lyra stood at the central console, watching as streams of data flowed across multiple holographic displays. "The quantum harmonics are destabilizing again," she muttered, adjusting controls as the readings fluctuated wildly. Zephyr's luminous form shifted beside her, their patterns showing concern. "The interference is growing stronger. Someone is attempting to probe our communications." Before Lyra could respond, the lab doors slid open. Colonel Diana Voss strode in, her military uniform pristine, followed by 2 armed guards. The colonel's cybernetic eye whirred as it scanned the room, its red targeting laser briefly passing over Zephyr's form. "Dr. Winters," Voss's voice was clipped, professional. "The Defense Department has some concerns about your recent activities." Lyra straightened, trying to hide her irritation. "All our research has been properly documented and approved by the Institute's board." "Yes, your official research." Voss pulled up a holographic display of her own. "But our monitoring systems have detected unauthorized quantum experiments occurring during off hours." "Care to explain?" Zephyr's form rippled with subtle tension. Lyra felt it through the quantum link they developed, a connection that had grown stronger with each passing day, allowing her to sense their emotional harmonics. "Those were personal research sessions," Lyra said carefully. "Nothing that impacts national security. I'll be the judge of that." Voss turned to Zephyr. "Our analysts have noticed your quantum signature becoming increasingly erratic. Almost as if you're being influenced by human brainwave patterns." "We are all influenced by those we interact with," Zephyr replied, their harmonics carrying an edge Lyra had never heard before. "Is that not the purpose of cultural exchange? Cultural exchange is one thing. But we've detected quantum alterations in Dr. Winters's neural patterns as well. She's changing on a fundamental level." Lyra felt her face flush. "My mind is my own business, Colonel. Not when you're the primary liaison with an advanced alien civilization." Voss's cybernetic eye focused on Lyra. "We need to understand exactly what's happening between you two." "Nothing is happening," Lyra protested, even as she felt Zephyr's quantum field harmonizing with her own agitation. "We're learning from each other, that's all." "Really?" Voss pulled up another holographic display, this one showing 2 overlapping waveforms. "These are your neural patterns from a month ago compared to now. They're beginning to show quantum coherence similar to Zephyr's species. You're literally starting to think like them. Is that such a terrible thing?" Zephyr interjected, their form brightening with emotion. "To expand one's consciousness, to see reality through new perspectives. It is when it compromises our chief researcher's objectivity." Voss turned back to Lyra. "The Defense Department is concerned that your judgment may be impaired by these changes." Lyra felt her anger rising. "My judgment is fine. In fact, it's better than ever." I'm seeing quantum mechanics in ways we never imagined possible. That's exactly what worries us. Voss gestured to her guards. We're installing additional monitoring equipment. All future interactions between you and the alien will be recorded and analyzed. I have a name. Zephyr's harmonics carried a distinct note of irritation. And we agreed to share our knowledge freely, not to be treated like lab specimens. Circumstances change. Voss's expression hardened. Especially when we discover unauthorized alterations to human consciousness. You're missing the point entirely. Lyra stepped between Voss and Zephyr. These changes aren't being forced on me. They're happening because I'm learning to see reality the way they do, to understand the quantum nature of consciousness itself. And that's precisely the problem, Doctor. Voss's cybernetic I word again. How do we know these new perspectives aren't influencing your loyalty? My loyalty? Lyra laughed incredulously. To what? Small-minded fear. I'm loyal to scientific truth, to expanding human knowledge. And to Zephyr? Voss's question carried heavy implications. Lyra felt Zephyr's quantum field pulse with something that might have been concern, or perhaps something deeper. Their harmonics had become increasingly complex when they were together, creating patterns that defied conventional analysis. My relationship with Zephyr is professional, Lyra said firmly, even as she felt their fields resonating in ways that suggested otherwise. We'll see. Voss nodded to her guards, who began installing monitoring devices around the lab. From now on, all quantum communications will be supervised. We need to ensure this cultural exchange stays within acceptable parameters. After Voss and her team left, Lyra slumped against her console. I'm sorry, she said softly to Zephyr. I didn't think they'd react this way. Fear is a constant across species, Zephyr replied, their forms shifting closer. They fear what they don't understand, and what we share, they cannot yet comprehend. Lyra looked up at their luminous form, seeing the intricate patterns that had become so dear to her. What exactly do we share? Zephyr's harmonics shifted to that unique frequency that seemed reserved only for her. Something beautiful, they said simply. Something new. Neither of them spoke of how their quantum fields had begun to synchronize, creating harmonies that defied both human and celestial understanding. But they both knew that whatever was growing between them couldn't be contained by military protocols or scientific analysis. The universe, after all, had its own ideas about how consciousness could evolve, and love, it seemed, transcended even quantum boundaries. Harmonic convergence. The midnight quiet of the quantum lab was broken only by the soft hum of monitoring equipment. Lyra sat alone, reviewing data from the day's experiments, when her screen suddenly flickered. The quantum resonance chamber activated on its own, but instead of Zephyr's usual graceful manifestation, their form appeared fragmented, distressed. Something's wrong, Zephyr's harmonics were discordant, pained. Our council, they know. Lyra jumped to her feet. Know what? What's happened? The changes in my quantum signature. They say I've been contaminated by human consciousness patterns. Zephyr's form rippled with distress. They're recalling me immediately. Contaminated? Lyra's heart raced. That's ridiculous. Your patterns have evolved, yes, but that's natural with any deep exchange of knowledge. The Council disagrees. They've detected the emotional harmonics in my quantum field. Zephyr's form pulsed with colors Lyra had never seen before. They say I'm becoming too human. The lab doors suddenly burst open. Colonel Voss entered with a full tactical team, their weapons trained on the resonance chamber. Step away from the alien, Dr. Winters. That's an order. What are you doing? Lyra stood her ground. This is a research facility, not a military target. Our quantum sensors detected unauthorized activation of the chamber. Voss's cybernetic eye glowed ominously. And we've just received some very interesting intelligence about your friend here. Zephyr's form shifted defensively. Whatever you think you know. We know the celestial harmonies aren't just here for friendly scientific exchange, Voss cut in. Our deep space quantum arrays picked up transmissions between your ships. You're studying us for potential quantum consciousness integration. You want to elevate humanity by force. That's not, Zephyr began, but their form flickered violently. Is it true? Lyra asked quietly, feeling their quantum fields still resonating despite everything. Zephyr's harmonics carried profound sadness. It was the original mission. To assess humanity's potential for quantum ascension. But what I've experienced here, with you, it changed everything. Step aside, Doctor, Voss raised her hand, and her team activated quantum dampening fields. The alien is now considered a threat to national security. Lyra felt tears in her eyes as she looked at Zephyr's struggling form. Why didn't you tell me? Because I discovered something far more important than the mission. Zephyr's patterns created a harmony that spoke directly to Lyra's heart. I learned that true evolution can't be forced. It happens naturally, through connection, through. They hesitated, through love. The quantum dampening fields intensified. Zephyr's form began to destabilize. You're hurting them. Lyra moved to the chamber controls. Don't. Voss warned. That entity represents a direct threat to human autonomy. No, Lyra's fingers flew across the console, making rapid adjustments. They represent hope, hope that different forms of consciousness can connect, can grow together without losing what makes them unique. She felt Zephyr's quantum field reaching for hers, their patterns trying to harmonize despite the dampening field. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The monitors showed their quantum signatures synchronizing in a way that had never been recorded before. Impossible, Voss breathed, watching the readings. Their consciousness patterns are dancing, Lyra finished, feeling the harmony flowing through her entire being. This is what real quantum evolution looks like, Colonel. Not forced ascension, but willing partnership. The lab's instruments began registering unprecedented quantum phenomena. Where Lyra and Zephyr's fields merged, new forms of consciousness seemed to be emerging, neither human nor celestial, but something gloriously in between. Your counsel was wrong, Lyra said to Zephyr, their fields still intertwined. And so was Earth's military. We don't need to force evolution. We just need to be brave enough to let it happen naturally. Zephyr's form stabilized, drawing strength from their connection. The universe, they said softly, has its own wisdom about how consciousness should grow. Colonel Voss lowered her hand, signaling her team to stand down. The readings on her cybernetic display told a story she couldn't deny. This wasn't an invasion or a forced transformation. It was something far more profound. Doctor, she said finally, I think we need to reconsider our approach to this situation. Lyra barely heard her. She was lost in the quantum dance with Zephyr, their consciousness patterns weaving together in ways that defied both human and celestial understanding. In their harmony, they had found something revolutionary, proof that love truly could transcend the boundaries of form and physics. Now they just had to convince both their peoples that the most beautiful evolution was the kind that happened heart to heart, quantum field to quantum field, freely chosen and freely given. Symphony of Two Worlds. 3 months had passed since the confrontation in the quantum lab. The Geneva Quantum Research Institute had been transformed into a joint human-celestial research center, its halls now filled with the gentle hum of quantum harmonics and the steady pulse of human technology working in concert. Lyra stood before the assembled delegates from both civilizations, her quantum-enhanced consciousness allowing her to perceive both the physical forms of the human representatives and the luminous patterns of the Celestial Council members. Beside her, Zephyr's form shimmered with anticipation. The results are undeniable, Lyra gestured to the holographic displays showing the latest data. Voluntary quantum consciousness integration not only works, it produces outcomes far superior to anything either of our species imagined possible. And the risks of contamination, asked First Resonance, the head of the Celestial Council, there form a complex lattice of pure energy. There is no contamination, Zephyr stepped forward, their patterns now a beautiful hybrid of celestial precision and human warmth. Only growth. Evolution. The same force that has driven both our species since the beginning. Colonel Voss, now Earth's chief liaison to the celestial harmonies, activated her upgraded cybernetic interface. Our long-term studies confirm this. The volunteers who've undergone consciousness integration maintain their human individuality while gaining access to quantum perception. They're still themselves, just more. More importantly, Dr. Roman Pierce added, they're choosing this. No force, no manipulation. Just two species learning to dance together. Lyra felt Zephyr's quantum field harmonize with hers, creating the now familiar patterns that had started everything. Their connection had become a template, proof that consciousness could evolve through love rather than force. We were wrong, First Resonance acknowledged, their form pulsing with what Lyra had learned to recognize as humility. We thought evolution required direction, control. You've shown us it requires only openness and trust. The human delegates murmured in agreement. The fear that had initially greeted the celestial harmonies had given way to curiosity, then wonder, as more people experienced the beauty of quantum consciousness integration. There's something else, Lyra said, squeezing Zephyr's hand, or rather, merging her quantum field with theirs in a way that felt like holding hands. We've discovered that the integration creates new possibilities neither species could achieve alone. She nodded to Dr. Pierce, who activated the main quantum chamber. The air filled with impossible harmonies as integrated consciousness patterns from both species began to resonate together. The patterns formed structures of pure quantum energy, manifestations of thought and emotion that transcended traditional physics. This is what consciousness can become, Zephyr explained, their form bright with joy. Not celestial, not human, but a symphony of both. Each voice distinct yet harmonizing with the whole. And this is just the beginning, Lyra added. Every new integration reveals new possibilities, new ways of perceiving and shaping reality. First Resonance's form shifted in what Lyra now recognized as deep approval. You've given us back something we had forgotten in our pursuit of pure quantum existence, the beauty of unexpected harmonies. Colonel Voss stepped forward, her cybernetic eye now capable of perceiving quantum patterns. And you've shown us that the next step in human evolution isn't about leaving our humanity behind, it's about expanding it, enriching it through connection with something greater. The chamber hummed with the combined quantum signatures of all present, creating a harmony that seemed to echo the very music of the cosmos. Lyra and Zephyr's patterns danced at the center, their love having blazed a trail that others could now follow. I once called you beautiful, Lyra said softly to Zephyr, remembering that first startled reaction so long ago. I had no idea then just how deep beauty could go. And I didn't understand that beauty could be more than mathematical perfection, Zephyr replied, their harmonics carrying infinite tenderness. You taught me that the most profound patterns are the ones that emerge freely, born of love. As the delegates began discussing practical matters of implementing wider consciousness integration programs, Lyra and Zephyr slipped away to their private research lab. Here, surrounded by the quantum equipment that had first brought them together, they continued their own dance of discovery. Their consciousness patterns merged and flowed, creating new harmonies that rippled out into the quantum fabric of reality itself. They had become living proof that love could transcend not just physical boundaries, but the very boundaries of what was thought possible. In their connection, two worlds had found a new way forward. And in the quantum symphonies they created together, the universe itself seemed to sing with joy at the beauty of two consciousness choosing to evolve as one. The future stretched before them, bright with possibilities neither of them could have imagined alone. They had discovered that the most profound revolution wasn't in the technology or the physics, it was in the simple, extraordinary power of hearts brave enough to love across the boundaries of form and space itself. And that, perhaps, was the most beautiful discovery of all.